The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. The name Jonah means dove. While today doves are associated with peace and beauty, in the Bible they are also associated with fickleness, fear, and grief. Hear these words from Psalm 55. My heart is convulsed within me. Terrors of death assail me. Fear and trembling invade me. I am clothed with horror. I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away and find rest. Surely I would flee far off. I would lodge in the wilderness. I would soon find me a refuge from the sweeping wind, from the tempest. A dove that flies away in fear, who tries to flee to a far-off land, who would seek refuge from the wind and the tempest. Gosh, if that doesn't sound familiar yet, it will in a few more minutes. Jonah, the dove, will come back to haunt us toward the end of the book as the prophet Jonah transforms into as completely an undove-like person as you could imagine. But we'll get there. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go at once to Nineveh, that great city. Nineveh, in modern-day Iraq, is the main geographical focus in this book. However, when the book was written down, probably after the Babylonian exile, the city of Nineveh was no longer. It had been the capital of the Assyrian Empire from 705 BC to 612 BC. It was a fantastically wealthy city that had been utterly destroyed and never rebuilt. So when the book of Jonah was written down and set in Nineveh, it would have sounded like the beginning of a story today with the words, a long time ago, in a land far, far away. The people hearing this story would have known Nineveh's eventual fate. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim judgment upon it, for their wickedness has come before me. God commands Jonah to go to Nineveh to prophesy against it, which is almost unheard of in the Old Testament. Prophets prophesied to their own people. Now, prophets would prophesy against other nations, but they would do it in front of the hometown crowd. The only other time in the Hebrew Bible that a prophet leaves home to prophesy to a foreign people is in 2 Kings 8, when Elisha went to Damascus. It just isn't done. The message that God sends to Nineveh is vague. He has seen their wickedness, and he is going to judge them. There's nothing actionable here. There's no carrot and stick. If you do this, then I'll refrain from doing that. No, it's just a message that judgment is coming. But this oracle kicks off something in Jonah, son of Amittai. Jonah, however, started out to flee to Tarshish from the Lord's service. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid the fare and went aboard to sail with the others to Tarshish, away from the service of the Lord. So we aren't told why Jonah flees from the Lord's service. We're just told that he does. I have to say, it would have been a lot easier and probably a lot more fun if God had told Jonah to prophesy about Nineveh to Israel. As I said a moment ago, that happened all the time. And that would have been fun. Everyone would have been cheering, oh yeah, those Ninevites are going to get what they deserve. That's a lot more fun than having to go and bring bad news to the Ninevites. Tarshish in the Bible sort of figures like Timbuktu to us today. It was this almost mythical, far-off place that everyone had heard of, but no one had ever been to. We don't actually know where this Tarshish is. It could be in Greece. It could have been in the islands west of Italy. It could be in Spain. It really doesn't matter. Spoiler alert, Jonah isn't going to actually get there. The important thing is that Jonah is running away from God to a place that is as far away as people could imagine in those days. Now, this story is already compelling, but it's also short on a lot of details, like, say, why is Jonah doing this? But in this third verse, we get Tarshish 3 times. And for a second time, we hear that he is going away from the Lord's service. These repetitions are not accidents, friends. They are there to highlight what the story wants us to see. I also want to point out another phrase that we're going to see repeated. Went down. Here, Jonah went down to the city of Joppa, but it's not the last time that Jonah is going to go down. But the Lord cast a mighty wind upon the sea, and such a great tempest came upon the sea that the ship was in danger of breaking up. Other than issuing the call to Jonah, this is the only action of God in the first chapter of Jonah. And yet, it completely drives the whole narrative. One of the principal claims about God in the Hebrew Bible is that God is the one who can control water. In the story of creation, God separates the waters above from the waters below, and then he separates the seas from the dry land. In the story of the Exodus, God splits the Red Sea. This story cements this claim on God. He controls the waters and brings the storm. In their fright, the sailors cried out, each to his own god, and they flung the ship's cargo overboard to make it lighter for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the vessel, where he lay down and fell asleep. What a display of contrasts. The sailors are scared to death. Jonah lays down. The sailors are frantically throwing cargo overboard while Jonah sleeps. The sailors are praying to their gods, and Jonah is running away from his. Notice how Jonah had gotten into the hold of the ship. He went down. The captain went over to him and cried out, "How can you be sleeping so soundly? Up, call upon your God. Perhaps the God will be kind to us and we will not perish." The Hebrew here in verse 6 literally reads, "Perhaps the God will give us a thought and we won't perish." Here is Jonah trying to escape God's thoughts. Here is Jonah trying desperately not to call upon his God. But here's a theological question for us to stop and ponder. The captain and the sailors are desperate to call upon God, any God, to see their plight and to help them. But ironically, it's God who has brought this plight upon them with this storm. God is trying to cajole Jonah to do his bidding, but in the process, everyone else on board is put in mortal danger. The captain's question, "Perhaps your God will give us a thought," can, from our vantage point, seem both humorous but also terrifying. What can we learn about God here?